It only takes a spark. I smoke half at a time so I don't get too abusive. Because it's fun to smoke when you talk sometimes. I don't know, maybe I feel like a wise man. I don't know, but anyway. It's tribute day and I just don't want to forget my buddy, George Macdonald. And if you want to read a really good book, see if you can find Unspoken Sermons, because that is messages that he was really psyched to preach. But he wasn't allowed to preach them ever in any churches. So he had to put them in a book because he was banned from most churches for being such a troublemaker. Because he used to say things like, churches are the worst thing for God that ever happened to the world. So you think that might be why they didn't let him preach? Or his other one that he said, if only these preachers would just let people find out that they can have their own special, unique relationship with God that nobody else can have, that will be different than everybody. And they will be the only ones who know. Because it's a secret relationship of talking to God and like getting answers from him. And if you're not doing that right now, what the heck are you doing? Because that's the key to why he wanted to have houses of prayer, but they made them dens of thieves with doctrines of hell. So you just need to get back to like George Macdonald said, because one of his messages that was one of my faves was men ought always to pray. And he said in it that like no preachers want to preach this. And it's like one of the things like Jesus said, you know, kind of like that pray without ceasing idea. So, well, how do I do that? I don't know. Well, here's the thing. I used to have fun with it and just pray for little things. And that's a great start because you want to have some faith. So if you just pray for big things and then hope they come true and then they never do, well, then you don't really know that you know God because you haven't seen the mountains moved. So one of my favorite things is to like, when I need something, I go to the store and I'm like, well, Lord, I need to buy this and I need to find it on sale. And wow, there was one time where it was when I had a painting business and I had to do a bunch of sanding on this house, like 20 grit and stuff, and it was a lot of work. And 20 grit sandpaper, if you've ever bought it, it's like gravel on paper. Literally, you can cut your hand on it. It's that sharp. So I went to buy some and I was like, I don't want to spend too much. They cost so much for these things. So I was just praying, Lord, can I find some good deals on sandpaper? Because I'm kind of broke and this job, I need to, get it done. And I could really use a good sandpaper sale. And I literally went to the store at Lowe's and they had like a sandpaper sale. It was literally like 90% off. It was amazing. And it was like Shop Smith, I think is a brand, and they make like the best sandpaper of all. I mean, I just love it because it lasts forever. And it's got like, I think it's got like ceramic in it or something. It's amazing. I tell you, I love that stuff. So I bought like a ton, I was like so happy. And so I went to this guy's house and the guy is a Christian customer that, I worked for and painted his house. And he had some Mormons there and they were like talking about how to, become a Mormon and doing their evangelization. And I'm not against Mormons, don't get me wrong. But I listened to them and they were telling me about how they can feel the Holy Spirit in their heart and all this stuff. And I thought, well, maybe that's true. But I'm like, I'm just not really into Jesus going to to Guatemala and saying the same things that he always said in the Gospels. It's just, I have trouble with that story. But, some of this other stuff, I'm not going to tell you you're all wrong. But then, they were like, are you Christian or something? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm not so into all these doctrines, really. And then they were like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, if you want to know about how I have faith, this is what I do. I like to pray and then see if it comes true. And the guy was like, well, yeah, that's true. And I said, well, come here. Let me show you. And the guy's like, what? And I'm like, well, come out here. And so I go out to my van and I said, I was praying as I came over here to find a sale on sandpaper. And look at what I found. These are 90% off. Look at the sandpaper. It's amazing. And I'll tell you what, those Mormon guys, they went from evangelization to just going, wow, that is like, it's almost like they were like in that Jesus moment, like the centurion, like, that is great faith, because they didn't want to talk to me about Mormonism anymore. And they were like, okay, bro, it's sad, it's good talking to you, man. What was your name again? And so that's where I discovered that one of the best evangelization, if you really want to like evangelize for like the king, you want to say something like, hey man, are you praying? Because, like, I prayed and this happened, and so I know it's working. And then, like, if I got bigger mountains, so I can kind of pray easier that way because I already got the sale, and I know we're on the same page. So, it's like that kind of thing. So that's like another example. And then this other one, I don't know if you saw that last video I did, but it was so amazing. I did this video on speaking in tongues to kids or whatever, like, here's how it happened in Acts 2, and I'll just do it in Spanish and English. And I let, some angel tongues kind of flow out to show that I could do it, and it just kind of slipped out. It wasn't like a big thing. I wasn't trying to show off or anything. It just sometimes just comes over me like that. So I did it, and I just said, well, I don't know if anybody out there understands it. Well, sure enough, within like minutes, I get like a message back, and it's some guy that understood me, I guess, in German. I don't know what it was. I don't even understand the message, and he's like quoting some verse, I guess maybe I referred to. I don't know. And then he's going on and on about, he's actually sent me another pastor, like, preaching, I guess, to a related theme. And it's all in, like, German or something. I don't even understand the letters, but, I mean, when I listened to it, I was like, well, I feel like I could talk that but I don't know what I'm saying. I think I'm doing it good, but, wow, that was, like, more than the same thing. See, I was just doing what I thought the king wanted, and it came out to be so much more. So sometimes if you just get on the right page, and that's why George Macdonald and things like that, if you can read these kind of things, these people were so on the page because he believed that Philippians 2 was literal and that every knee on earth would bow. And C.S. Lewis loved his stuff and read him. It was his favorite author, but C.S. Lewis said, it's just so much of what he believes. It would be so great if it was true, but it's too much. It's TMI. I can't believe that that's that true. There's no way that every knee on earth will bow in the end. There's no way. It can't be that good. You know what I mean? So he just couldn't take it. And I think I see that now because a lot of people, I tell some of these things like, dude, whatever, man. You're out there. And it's funny because I've had pastors tell me the same thing. Like, man, you're deep, dude. I'm like, well, am I supposed to be shallow? Is that what the Bible's for? Just waiting? Like when you go waiting on the beach? I don't want to jump in. I just like to just get a little bit on my feet. I don't want to get too much of that word in me. That might be dangerous. So that might be the key because, there was that author, E.M. Bounds, that he said that if you pray enough, then God will show you more things. And if you get deep enough into it and talk to him all the time, he might just make you into a prophet. And I'm not trying to say I am one. I'm just trying to say that we all need to be open to these things and just talk to the king and get in touch with him. Like that's kind of like what George Macdonald was going towards, like getting to know your king one-on-one and spending time with him, because if he is your bridegroom and you are the promised bride that hasn't quite tied the knot yet, well, you want to be like on the same page with that king and talking to him, because it wouldn't be too romantic if you said, well, hey, honey, I haven't talked to you in like a couple months, but I love you. You see what I mean? And especially if you look like a dead mummy when he comes, well, that probably wouldn't be the best idea, because I see a lot of Egypt things happening right now, and I know some people think that King Tut might be king. Or maybe he's the real Antichrist. There's some rumors like that around, but I don't really get onto all these things. I'd like to be with the king, and the more that you focus on him, the more these other things just don't really faze you, because that's all fear-mongering from the princes, and see, that's not from the king. So just don't fear, and talk to your king and thank him for all that he's doing and all he's going to do with you. And the more you do with you, the more he can do with you, then there's probably a better chance that he could use you like the Presidente de Mexico right now, which I think he's using, because he just went all organic, like he's worried about that golden rule and about the judge who's coming to divide the wheat from the chaff. And he's like, I think we should have all really good wheat in Mexico now. And Scotland always was like that. And, you know, that's the other thing about George Macdonald. That's kind of a key thing, too, is that he did have great faith. And he talked about it. And, like, you know, some of the mountains he moved. I don't remember all those stories, but I know that he did. And the thing is that it wouldn't have surprised me if way back then he probably prayed, oh, Lord, may Scotland never have poisons planted in it or something, because when GMOs came out, I think Scotland was like the only place that was like, there's never going to be any seeds or any GMO foods in this land. And wow, that's kind of like the king would want. And it makes me wonder if like George prayed that, like, you know, like Amish style, may this like ground always be done right, which maybe in some Amish areas, like in Lancaster and those Pennsylvania Dutch areas, like where my grandma lived once, and those might be the ones that are still on that same page. So that's what it's all about, you know, just get on the right page, and then you don't have to worry and stress about these things. Because George Macdonald, he was banned by a lot of Christians and not too well liked by these pastors, but he did some great things, and you can still learn from him and feed on the seed that he planted long ago. It's still out there somewhere if you can find it buried. I'm sure there's a few books on half.com. I used to love to buy used books there, because you get them for like 50 cents. You got to pay like $5 of shipping. What are you going to do? But hey, it's all good when you're with the king. So just get, you know, right with the king and think about the simple things, like, you know, following the golden rule and loving God right. It's all downhill from there. So the other people, that they're probably going to be stressed out, especially they're all beastly already and, you know, they're all zombified. Well, they're probably not going to enjoy your company, because you'll be too relaxed with the king, and they're all into that fear. Oh, we gotta be panic up, watch out, oh no. That's just the game they play. So don't get into the games or the fears and all the mongering, because you're with the king, and if you're on the same page, it's all good from here. You just pray and watch what he does, and remember the stories, because that's the best way to reach out and draw others when they know that you're already moving mountains. Well, that's part of that house of prayer idea. So that's what we're trying to bring back, you know, like little by little. But it only takes a spark to get that fire going. So you just got to, you know, pray for the little things. And as they come true, the bigger ones come. And then you can be like those guys. Hey, man, look at this sandpaper. Whoa, dude, I don't think I need to let you know how to know God, because it sounds like you already do. Maybe I could take some classes from you know what I mean? So that's kind of where we want to be. We want to be that kind of light that is infectious, you know, like a plague, but a good one. We want to give people that fever in their heart for the king, and then all this princely stuff, well, they might see the benefit of getting out of it. Because that's one of the things about waking people up, you know, you just never know who's gonna drink the water and who's gonna be muzzled up. So you just spread the seed and love and pray and hope. And that's another thing. Since we're on to George Macdonald and prayer, I have to give props to that Foster guy. He wrote a good book about how Quakers learn to pray and become pastors. And one thing that they required trained to become a pastor was that you had to like make certain days and devote them literally to prayer. And what you would do is every single person that you saw that day, you would say a prayer for them. And it's a really good habit. I tried it a few times. I wish I could say I'd do it more, but something makes me forget. I don't know what that is. But anyway, it's a really good habit to just try it. Especially like, I try to do it especially when I see messed up people, because it's easy to call them an idiot. But we have to remember that the king said, if you call somebody an idiot, you put yourself in danger of hellfire. And there's a lot of people talking about who's in danger of hellfire right now. So let's not try to get in that scheme. So what I suggest is just pray for each one of these that you see that are all bundled up and worried and feared into that zombie scene. And so instead of like, trying to yell at them and making a scene and whatever, and just say a simple, silent prayer. And it all goes better that way, because then you're talking to the king about it. And if anybody can pull him out of that fog, he can. And that also helps you to care more for others, because if you see 100 people in a day and you pray for them all, well, that's a pretty big thing, because you see, he saves all those prayers. In Revelation, there is a verse, I don't know exactly where it is, somewhere in the middle of the book, but it says that he opens this like cistern, and out come all the prayers that have been saved up. So if you're praying for 100 people in a day, and those prayers all get saved up, well, that's like a rewarding thing, and you might get gold for that. So, hey, loving others does pay, and it's just not easy to do sometimes when people get these attitudes. But that's why we have that comforter that helps us understand that it's his plan, not ours, and that he knows how it's going to all work out. So you just don't have to worry. Just keep trusting the king and keep doing what you feel he's telling you to do, and then you won't be struggling to get uphill like so many are right now. So try that little Quaker trick and pray for everyone you see. Like, even if it's not just mass people, like I've done that a few times too. Just even praying for cars that drive by. It's a good habit. These are the kind of habits that get you into that kingdom mode. And then praying for others, like, just gets easier when you're just already praying for everybody to see them. That love just starts coming naturally, and then that hate, it just kind of slips away. Just like those demons, because it says if you resist the devil, he will flee from you. And if you're like working for him and like loving all these people and like hoping they'll wake up and praying for them, like you actually hope they will, well, then those demons, that guy can't hate anybody. And you got to remember the other beautiful thing about prayer is that in C.S. Lewis' Screwtape Letters, that's a great book if you haven't read that, about how demons communicate. Wow, what a great story that is. But in that one part, there's a younger demon. He talks to his older advisor, Screwtape. And the younger guy's Wormwood, and he says, "Oh, Screwtape, it's done. My assignment was, this is, the person he was working on. He got saved today, so it's over. He's lost to the, the enemy," they said in the book. And then Screwtape writes him back, says, "No worries, lad, it's not that bad." And he's like, "What?" He's like, "Well, you don't have to worry. Just because he's saved, it doesn't mean much, because we've used many after they got saved for many great things for our side." You're just like, "What?" And he said, "Well, the key is when he prays, talk to him and tell him, you're not talking to anybody. You don't know nobody's listening to you. Isn't this boring? Don't you have something else to do? Aren't you tired right now? What are you trying to do?" And just make him think it doesn't work. And if you can keep him bored with it and he doesn't do it, well, then he won't do that much for the enemy. And just keep him from doing that silent prayer stuff, because that's really dangerous for us, and we have got in a lot of trouble with that before. And when I read that, I was like, that is so good, because if you think about it, silent prayer is one thing demons just hate, because they can't read your mind, but they can listen to your voice. So if you're like, oh, Lord, help me with this, well, they know what you're trying to get done. But if you say it silently, they're, oh, crap, now he's talking and I can't hear it. So that's always fun, too, to, spend like an hour in silent prayer and confuse all the demons, and they'll run away from me because, oh, no, what is he trying to do to me? So try these things and talk to your king and say, thank you for all you've done, and help me to draw near to you as you bring your kingdom come.